Tracking poll by Global Info Analytics, which shows majority of voters prefer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to lead the MPP in the 2028 election. The poll suggests 57% of voters prefer Dr. Bawumia, while 29% prefer Kennedy Ohene Agyapong. In the swing regions of Greater Accra, Central and Western, Bawumia leads with 57%, Agyapong with 32 follows, and Yaweduchum and Baine Champong and Kwabena Agyapong follow with 4 and 3 respectively. In the race to lead the NDC, the poll also showed that Haruna Idrisu was leading the pack with 30%, Asidun Ketia 24, Atufosin 18, Julius Debra with 10, Uchetua Blakwa with 8, and Eric Opoku and others following. It also presents 3 horse race scenarios and looks at what it calls runoff scenarios. We'll be speaking to Executive Director of Global Info Analytics, Mussa Dankwah. He's on the line already. Before I talk to him, here are some reactions. Dr. Agyapong, who is an aide to Dr. Bawumia, said the results reflect the effort Dr. Bawumia has put into the campaign, adding that he will build on these figures and he would not be complacent.
Be the candidate who can win us the election. So that has been the same message that we've been giving to the delegates all around, and now we're in the central regions. You know, the thing with polls is whenever you see one, you look at it and learn what you can. So from our campaign, looking at the Global Info Analytics poll, we've taken what we need to take out of it. We'll improve where we need to and that. Generally, so as the Bawumia campaign, we look at all the polls that come out and then take the lessons that we can learn from it. But obviously, we are quite excited about still being in the lead. I think this is about the 3rd or 4th poll that Global Info Analytics has released, and it always puts us in the lead amongst MPP delegates and indeed amongst the general population. So it's something that we are keeping an eye on. We are not going to be complacent. As you stated earlier, we are currently on our way to central regions to engage delegates, and we'll continue to go around to engage delegates to be able to get a good message across.
So that was an aide to Dr. Bawumia, Dr. Agyapong. Other camps have reacted. We have, for example, the campaign spokesperson for Kwabena Agyapong, Paul Abdurrahman Issa. He is saying that the polls were inaccurate.
As you know, polls are always, a lot of the time, polls are subjective, and we have always maintained that some of these polls, well, they have their utility, but we don't put too much premium on it. If polls were anything to go by, Donald Trump wouldn't have won the 2016 U.S. election, neither would he have won the 2024 U.S. elections. I mean, everybody said Kamala was going to win, and he won. In 2016 was even worse. All pollsters thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and in the end, Donald Trump won. So polls are subjective, depends on who you are asking, when you are asking, and all those kinds of things. But we take it as we are a campaign team of intellectuals. We are a campaign team of objectivity. We ourselves conduct our internal polls after our meetings with the delegates to see how they received our message, to see the enthusiasm that they have. Who did Global Info Analytics speak? If we were to vote today, I can assure you that Engineer Kwabena Agyapong, if we don't take the first slot, will be second. We will be the second. We will see the second highest vote in that election.
So that was a spokesperson for Kwabena Agyapong. There's also another poll which looks at the direction of the country, performance of the president, government, and MPs. We'll also touch on some of those because that poll suggests that President Mohammed's honeymoon might be over, although more than 2 in 3 voters still approve of his job performance as president. So the poll saw the president's job approval decline from 73% in July to 67% in September, representing a 6% drop. It also shows 22% of voters disapprove of the president's, while 11% did not have an opinion. There are other findings we'll discuss. Let's talk to Mussa Dankwah first on the presidential primaries and outlook for 2028. Mussa, thanks so much for joining the Eyewitness News on Point Blank. Good evening.
It also shows 22% of voters disapprove of the president.
Hello, Mussa.
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Some are asking, why are you worrying Ghanaians with polls about 2028? We haven't even done 1 year into 2024. What's your problem?
I don't have a problem. Ghanaians are talking, and rightly so, because we are in a unique circumstances, especially when it comes to NDC. You didn't see this under Ronaldo because he was going for a second term. So nobody will do this kind of issues discussion. But NDC is in a very unique situation, and Mahama is going for a just single term. And indeed, people, without being prompted, have already started their moves. All that we have done is to speak to voters and ask them what do they think.
I see. I think on the MPP side, it seems the trend has continued to favor Bawumia. You did a July and you did September. It doesn't seem to have changed much, right? Is there any significant difference between 3 months ago and now in relation to the favorites for the MPP?
No, what has happened is that he has dropped slightly between July and now. But that drop that he dropped, that number didn't go to Kennedy. It rather went to undecided. So people probably have softened their stance for him by that percentage and then went to undecided. Kennedy and the rest of the candidates were flat. There was no change in their numbers, which means nothing is changing much in terms of their numbers.
But to have 27% of respondents who are MPP members say they are undecided, this is delegates. That's pretty serious. 27% undecided is very high, isn't it?
No, Bernard, if you remember last year, when you and I were doing the MPP delegate polls, about 10% were not disclosing. That number is now down to 4%. And those who were saying they were undecided were 18%. So people have moved from now being not disclosing and telling you a bit more and the rest going into undecided. I believe fundamentally the behavior of MPP people has not changed, especially the delegates.
Yeah, but if 27% are undecided, will that say, what does that point to? Because it's a big number. If you add that to any of the other numbers, it can shift the race, right? If Kennedy Agyapong has 29% of the voters and another 27 say they're undecided, if they all support him, that could be big, right? So can we say that the MPP race is still not over and that we should watch this space?
Oh, no, it's still not over. I wouldn't say it's over. But if you look at where the leading candidate is, it is highly unlikely every undecided will go to one candidate. And if you look at the trick of who are undecided, you could figure out who they will vote for by looking at other person. We've done that behind the scenes, but because we're not doing predictions right now, we don't want to share that data at this stage. And we believe that Kennedy has to do a lot more to bring Dr. Bawumia down, or his other competitors should do a lot more in order to drag Bawumia from where he is for the race to be in a runoff situation. But for now, what it looks like is that it might be difficult to get a runoff if it continues this way.
Moving away from the MPP briefly, the NDC race intrigues me because, again, the government is probably 3 full months in work, all right? Because, of course, they appointed minister somewhere March, April. But you haven't even had a full year of work yet. Where are these names coming from? Are you... How did you even decide that these are the people whose names will be whose name will be in the box, right?
But some of them, by their utterances, you know they would go. One of them is Asidin Ketia, who has not ruled himself out. You know, Zebra, we know for sure he's going to go. Haruna Dusu has made a comment that made us feel that he's going to contest. Atuposin has said nothing, absolutely nothing. But we believe that he's one of the top positions in the government that if he throws his hat in the race, it could mean something. Some of them, Dankwah is also there to see how the young people are faring, and he's doing well, pretty well in terms of young voters. The rest of them, some have called us, some have sent emissaries to say that they have interest, so we should put their names in there. So the rest of the names, some of them were through backdoor contacts or backdoor channels. That's why we have a very long list like that.
But I noticed the vice president's name is not in the list. And I find that interesting because I think it was last week that the education minister at a program, and I'm quoting a story that is on a number of websites, I pray you become Ghana's first female president. Haruna Idrisu, 24 September 2025. And I'm reading the story. It says the Minister for Education, Haruna Idrisu, has expressed his goodwill for Vice President Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyeman, praying that she will one day become Ghana's first female president. Mr. Idrisu made the remark when the Vice President visited the Ministry of Education in Accra. Welcoming her, he said, quote, "It's my pride and honor and grace to want to welcome you back to the Ministry of Education, this time in an elevated capacity as first female Vice President of the Republic." The minister went on to wish her long life and good health, adding, quote, "It is my prayer that God will give you long life and good health, so that probably you will be elevated to become the first female president. God bless you." This is just last week. So I'm surprised that the vice president doesn't feature in your prospective names for the NDC.
Bernard, she was there in April. The first poll we did was around 25%, and Haruna and Apu were around 20%. But then after that, we have this health issue, healthcare that made them flew out of the country for treatment, and he came back. So the health pressures, we believe that will make it very difficult for her. Also, at the moment, she's about 73. So next, in 2028, she'll be around 77. The data shows that 64% of voters prefer young leaders. And 78% of people who vote in this country, roughly, are below the age of 44. So we believe that age will be a key issue in the next election, whoever leads MPP or NDC. And for that matter, that may be advocated. So it was from our own call that we dropped her. If there is indication that she's going to contest, we will by no means bring her back in the race.
Well, I think it made it more interesting. And also the fact that from your research, Haruna is the leading candidate based on the data, is essentially endorsing the sitting vice president. It will be very interesting, to read. And that's number one. Number two, the NDC may well have their own primaries for different election officers and different executives before they even choose their leaders for the flag bearership. So unlike the MPP, who have decided that they would start with the flag bearer, the NDC would have to choose national officers at various levels before this final one. So it will suggest the NDC findings could be taken with a bit pinch of salt, right? Because this is, we are not even sure who's voting. That's what I'm saying.
No, Bernard, the NDC data is not from delegates. It's voters' perception, general voters, who they prefer to lead NDC. And look, what makes the NDC case more interesting is that their election will see younger people becoming delegates. And that will be making more deadly than the old alcohol. If younger people are becoming delegates in the NDC, it means they will push a youth agenda. And the cry for younger leaders will be much louder than it is right now.
So that's an interesting one to watch. But for the NDC race as well, for the names you put out, it seems to me it's I don't know. Is it 2-horse race? Because you say Haruna is leading the pack with 30, Asirin Ketia 24, Atuforsin 18, Julius Zebra 10, Okucha Tabakwa 8. Can we discern any pattern in this? And how does this compare to 3 months ago?
Look, Haruna was leading 2 months ago. He's gone up about 3% compared to the rest. Atuforsin has declined by, I think, 4% compared to last time. And I think Jenatu has declined slightly among all voters. Now, what is interesting to understand is that Haruna is the only northern candidate, or except from the northern sector, in the race. So he's able to consolidate all the northern sector votes to himself. Whereas the southern sector, you can see that everybody there is southerner, and they are splitting the votes. Now, what you would find is that eventually, when the race narrows, when people drop, when others who feel like, no, this one, I won't make it, I will drop, then you begin to see consolidation of the vote. And that would probably put somebody else over the top than Haruna.
All right. Now, moving away from 2028 into the direction of the country, performance of the president, government, and MPs, this national tracking poll, which you released, I think, a week ago, you say that the honeymoon for President Mahama might be over, although 2 in 3 voters still approve of his job performance as president. Can you put a bit of meat on that? What do you mean by this?
Look, if you go to voters who are saying that the government as a whole has performed, There has been a decline of those who say they perform very good or good from 61% to 54%. That's a big decline. If you go to people who are saying that their standard of living has improved, that has declined from 59% in July to 87% right now. Then if you go to those who say that they are optimistic their standard of living will improve in the next 12 months, that has declined from 72 to 67. And then lastly, on the fight against corruption, if you ask them whether the government is doing enough in fighting corruption, that number who say yes has declined from 63 to 58. So these are the indications that led to Mahama losing grounds in overall approval rating.
It will be interesting to know when you took the data, because the Galamsey issue has come up strongly, and I think it came up after his encounter with the press.
Yes.
As did the issue around the deportation of non-Ghanaians into Ghana. Did you take the data before the meet the press or after the meet the press?
After the meet the press, and also after the Galamsey market and deportation had happened. So those may have fed into the data.
But you didn't ask a specific question about how Ghanaians perceive the Galamsey fight?
Not this time around. But we are hoping to collaborate with other CSOs to do a comprehensive survey on Galamsey and other matters. But
interestingly, on the fight against corruption, you said majority of voters believe the government is doing enough in the fight against corruption. 58%, while 29% say it's not doing enough. The poll also shows that voters who believe the government is not doing enough is on the increase, rising from 23 to 29. Do you think the government is under pressure on the corruption issue? Because that 23 to 29 between July and September seems to be quite big.
It's big. And I think it is due to a bit of stalling of oral cases. People are thinking that, look, these guys are passing themselves in the back. And especially when people are talking about plea bargain, people don't understand. So you can steal government money and go and have an agreement with somebody at the Attorney General and get your sentence or whatever cut. So people are really angry. They don't understand the legal context of that plea bargain and what they're supposed to achieve. So for them, it's the government trying to go into bed with people who are stealing money.
The other thing I noticed was quite interesting, that the poll shows that floating voters saw an increase from 2% to 17% in September. Is this becoming a trend we should look at? The idea of people who call themselves floating voters, is the 17 normal, or can we say it's unprecedented?
No, it is normal. In the last election, it was 50%. What we have seen in recent times since the election is that the number of voters who say they are NDC has gone up significantly. In October, there were 33% of Ghanaians who were openly saying they were NDC. Now that number is 42%. MPP was 37% in October last year, openly saying they're MPP. That number has declined to 27%, Bernard. So people are moving from MPP and they are going towards NDC and floating voting. And we have also seen an increase in number of those who say that we won't tell you our political party because they are probably shy to say that they are MPP. They are still MPP, but they won't say so.
Finally, something you said in your summary that I find very, I don't want to use the word remarkable, but it's obviously worth probing further, that Gen Z and millennial voters, which is voters under 44 years of age, i.e. people born after 1981, account for nearly 78% of voters. That is very serious.
It is very serious, Bernard, and that is what is going to shape our politics going forward. You know, if you look at the EC register, that number is probably around 75 or 74. But in this sample, there's margin of error of about 2%, so it's a bit way. But it's still within range that over 74% of people who vote in this country are under 44 years of age. And these guys are the same people who are saying that they want Ghana to be led by young people.
It's obviously something to keep an eye on. So finally, when are you doing something else? Is this every 3 months? We're in September, so when should we expect another installment of this?
Yes, with regard to the national tracking poll, the next one will start 7th word before Christmas, and the report will be out January. But in between, we may be doing the MPP delegates because their elections are quite in the core, very near in the future. So we will track their delegate polls every month.
Mussa Dankwah, always a pleasure talking to you, pushing the envelope, using research to enrich national discourse. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Mussa Dankwah is the Executive Director of Global Info Analytics.